All right.
The time being 6:31. I call to order the planning board meeting for March 27th, 2018.
At this time, I'd like to make a motion
Okay.
that we re-elect Gina Tilton as chair and Eric Perry as vice chair for the coming season.
I'll second that.
Just, I think you guys have done a great job. Eric did a stupendous job at the last meeting.
Any conversation?
No change. Just me.
I seconded it.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any
Do it.
opposed? Any abstaining?
You guys will do it again, right?
Only now.
You're looking there stunned. I just realized nobody asked you. Oh, do the flag thing.
That would, but,
You look like the deer in headlights.
Oh, I like that.
We know he loves it.
all right, so we'll go on to review of the February 27th minutes. Actually, yeah.
Look at the February 27th, it says review the February 13th.
Yeah. Darry, on page 2, I did have one thing
Okay.
on review of the February 13 minutes.
Yep.
It says all in favor, none opposed, but I abstained because I wasn't here on the 13th.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
All right, yep.
Anyone else have anything? A motion to,
Make a motion to approve the minutes of February 27th
I'll second that.
as amended, changed.
all those in favor?
All
Aye.
right.
Any opposed?
I'm abstaining, I wasn't here.
Okay, Deb Shepherd is abstaining.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yep.
Great. Planning board case 1801.
I'm sorry, could I just mention, in previous years, we've had a secretary, and it's not totally necessary other than our regulations require a secretary's signature on plans, so I don't know if you want to quickly address that. The applicant doesn't appear to be here yet, anyway, for 1802.
Who's the secretary now?
I think Juliet.
Secretary, would you be willing to
Two or
continue?
3 years.
I make a motion to nominate Jules as the
I
secretary.
second that.
Any
You
discussion?
like it the same? Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Yay. I'm just gonna have to get it someday.
No.
Do you have to read about the first case that they wish to?
Yes, we're getting on there.
No, I thought you were waiting for the other guys to.
Nope. Because this is the first one. Planning board case 1801, continuation of site plan review for auto serve. They have asked for it to be continued.
I make a motion to continue case 18-01 until,
I guess we could say April 10th. I kind of doubt it'll come again on that day, but we could continue again, I guess.
until April 10th, 2018.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. How's that for timing?
Really?
Yeah,
Planning
perfect.
board case 1802, continuation of site subdivision plan and site plan review. Proposal from Kevin Lacasse to develop a 24-unit cluster subdivision at School Street and Country Meadows Drive in the Rural Agricultural District, R13-8. Did everyone get their handouts from this?
Yes.
I think I printed it out. Mine.
Give you guys a copy of these?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Mine.
I think we have enough.
You know how to share.
Not a share if we don't? Okay. Here you go. Actually, I think we do. One to spare.
There's one number missing, so.
Thank you.
should be ready.
Dyer, did you want a?
Oh, yeah, thank you. You got it. Thanks.
Yep.
So Cass, did you have anything you wanted to add that you have not? Look at this.
Is that in a good spot, or do you want us to move?
Yeah, I'll move my fan.
You said,
You won't carry it around.
Hi, I'm Ken Brown from Brown Engineering. I'm representing Kevin Lacasse in this subdivision. Since we met the last time, I just wanted to give you kind of an update of what's been going on. We met with Tim Gruber from the Tilton Planning Department, and he had approved the plans, and at the last meeting, we had talked at length about the waiver for the road to be 20 feet instead of 24 feet wide. And I wanted to make sure that he understood when he approved those plans that we were asking for that waiver. So I set up another meeting and went back and talked to him about it and showed him the plan to make sure that he was aware of that. He wrote a subsequent letter that you should have about that, saying that he looked at it again and that he wanted to have some kind of mechanism to discourage people from parking on the side of the road. So we did two things in that regard. We added a sign at the entrance saying that there's no parking on the road, only on the shoulders. 33 sheets now, so it's getting a little complicated. It's on page 31 of 33 is the sign schedule. And we've added a sign that says no parking except on shoulders. And then in the homeowners association documents, we're going to add wording that the homeowners are not allowed to park on the side of the road. One of the other issues that came up.
Can we talk about that one for just a second while we're there? What is the consequences if they do? It's a private road, so it's not going to be policed by the police department. So what are the
Right.
consequences if they park on the road?
Whatever consequences the association wants to levy against them, so, whatever, the same consequences if they don't pay their association fees, it's what they have to do to manage it.
So we don't know.
But it does give them the right to tell them not to do it, and that they have signed an agreement saying that they're, so when they're at the closing, they have to sign the association document. So it is a contract, let's say, that tells them not to do it.
Right, but we don't have that in front of us to know what there is, to know if there are going to be any real consequences.
We could probably add something in there. I know on our other properties, if people park where they're not supposed to, we have them towed.
That's a
So,
consequence.
yeah, that's a consequence that they'll only do once. So, I mean,
So we could add that.
we could add that into
association.
the association documents.
I'm waiting for some feedback tonight from the meeting to give the attorney the kind of final comments as to particulars to add to the regular boilerplate for association document. So we could certainly put stronger wording in something like that the association can have the person park if they park on the side of the road.
Is it appropriate for us to ask for the association list of like prohibitions, usually with
Yes,
associations?
you'll get a
yeah.
copy of
Okay.
that.
So
I'm
that
waiting
whole thing.
to do this meeting, he'll finish it up and get a draft over to you guys to review.
Thanks.
I have a concern. It's Christmas Day, we got snow banks, it's New England, we know that roads tend to be a little bit narrower during the winter time. And, the Smiths have the family over, and they have 5 or 6 cars. Where are they gonna park? If it's snow, they're not gonna be able to park on the shoulder. They're gonna have to park on the road.
I guess my response would be they'd be responsible for clearing the shoulder to allow for their company to park, otherwise they're subject to being towed, just like anybody else would be.
And I did mention that to Tim Juber when we talked about it, about things like that. He says they run into the same thing in every neighborhood regardless of the width of the road. If somebody's blocking the road, they block the road, but they have ways of taking care of that. But this is, you know, as I said, what happens if, and he said, well, you really can't plan around that. You know, it's not, there's room on the shoulder to park. Yes, in that particular instance, maybe it does get congested, but they're not gonna fail to respond if they have one party on the street. And if every, you know, if they drop trees across the road and block.
Well, I work for a landscape company, and we clear out a development, and I don't know what the width of the road is. I'd have to ask someone, but when we park our vehicles there for snow maintenance, because we clean their driveways, their walkways, we shovel the paths to the propane fills and all that, and, you know, we're there all day.
Yeah.
And, you know, we have 4 or 5 vehicles parked throughout the development, and, you know, it narrows the road.
Yeah.
And, you know, granted, these are trucks, but they still are not much wider, and so, and we've had emergency vehicles come through, and it does slow them down, and it does.
In a situation like that too, I mean, just a couple of other things, it's a loop road, so there is
This
more
is a
than
loop
one.
as well, this is a loop as well.
Okay, and the other thing is if there was an emergency vehicle coming through and there is a party, it's not like there's cars that are parked there and the people are nowhere to be found. They would be right there, so obviously they'd have to go up to their cars in an emergency situation.
So it's what's the 24 feet or 22 feet? 24?
The required, I think it's 24.
So, I mean, if it required 24 feet, then that would be a little bit more comfortable. That's just my opinion.
So we'll let you think about that for a minute if you want.
Is there a reason you wouldn't just do a 24-foot, right?
And the reason was that we feel like the 20-foot road helps to slow people down through an area like this where there's a lot of houses. It's not an uncommon width, it's not, absurd to have a 20-foot road. I live on a 20-foot road in a subdivision, cluster subdivision, similar to this. It does tend to slow people down, and it's less pavement. So we're trying not to have as much impervious area, for the runoff and the low impact development concept is trying to minimize it. We're restricted on the footprint of the houses to 1,500 square feet, because that was an environmental concern that the zoning board had. So it went along with that, and that's why we're doing it, so. We could go to 24, but it's, that's the waiver we're asking for. So we'll come back to that. The septic system setback, when we came last time, there was a mistake, and it was really my mistake of not finding the regulation in the wetland overlay for the 125-foot setback to septic system. Just something I hadn't expected. The maximum setback with the state is 75 feet. Just didn't think that I was going to see that, and I didn't see it. So since we met the last time, we redesigned the community septic system. So now there's 4 community septic systems that are slightly smaller, and I was able to make that work so we meet the 125-foot setback to the wetland soils. That was accomplished by making the system smaller. So that would be on page 9 and 10. Drainage, in working with the Conservation Commission on the drainage, we had the gravel wetland along School Street was within the 20-foot buffer. We were able to redesign that and move it out of that buffer to eliminate the impact into the 20-foot buffer for that, so we aren't going to have to ask for a conditional use permit. The town engineer asked for more pairs of catch basins, which we've added. And then one of the abutters at the last meeting was talking about a drainage problem that he has with this part of the site currently draining into its driveway. So we've added a small swale there in between in order to pick that water up and shoot it down the hill. Was that you that talked about that?
No, it's not.
Oh, he's not. Okay. So we added that. And then signage, we had inadvertently placed the sign out in the town right away. I don't know why we did that, but we relocated the sign to here. And there'll be a stop sign, and on heading into the development will be the sign that 20-mile-an-hour speed limit and the no parking except on the shoulders. The addresses and mailboxes. We've designed a mailbox hut that's similar, virtually identical to the one for Country Meadows in size, and put it there at the entrance. Somebody can come in, I guess you can see it on sheet 9. It's right here, the mailbox hut. And there was a comment by the town engineer about including addresses on the subdivision plan, and Dari looked that up for us with the state 911 person, and she said that until there were curb cuts in place, they won't assign addresses, so we just have to wait for that. Kevin, did you want to add anything?
No, just with the mailboxes, I had called the postmaster for Tilton, and what she told me was that, because our preference would have been to have mailboxes at each individual house instead of the kiosk, but she said that given the rural route of that area, she would only do it in kiosks. So that was kind of why. I know we had talked about it back and forth last time, but that's what she came up with.
So that's pretty much what I had for tonight.
I have a strange question. Did you consider, and this isn't really part of your site plan, were you putting the mailbox kiosk, possibly a bus hut for the children too, so the children that live there can get out of the weather while they're waiting for the bus?
That's something we haven't thought of, but if it's like,
I mean, it's not like part of your site plan, it's just a
no, but
suggestion.
most areas right now, I almost guarantee that they won't even have a bus stop there. They'll go house to house with the buses and pick up the children at each individual house. They don't, for some reason, most school districts now won't even do bus stops. They go door to door.
Not here.
No, no,
That's
private road.
Really?
Private road.
Huh.
Is that something that we should talk to the SAU about?
The bus thing,
About
yes.
the
Yeah.
bus issue?
Actually, it's the bus company itself.
The bus company.
I
Okay,
just
yeah,
call
we can
First
do that.
Student directly. Yeah,
Yeah.
they'll work with you.
Okay. That was interesting.
I didn't, until you mentioned that, I never even thought.
Usually in inclement weather though, they cancel school anyway.
When it's cold out, and they're waiting and that wind goes through there.
They may stop right at School Street,
I'm sure that's where they'll stop.
yeah, not even come in.
Hmm.
I'm sure that's where they'll stop.
Oh, okay.
That's why it would be a good idea to have a hut.
They could even make the mailbox hut just a.
That's why I was asking.
And that's what I was just gonna suggest too, yeah. Because the mailbox hut will have some type of cover, and maybe we just make that a little wide with some walls or
And
something.
they can hide in there.
Right.
Down white rock, like that. That's a nice little one. That's, I know that.
Has the state accepted the septic design?
No, we
Has it been
haven't,
submitted?
we have not made the submission. I was, again, waiting until, we had this meeting tonight, to make the state submission approval.
Have you heard from DOT? Yeah.
DOT.
DOT on your driveway application?
Yes, that's been approved.
Do you have that, Barb?
Do I have that?
Yes, you do.
Okay.
I printed out everything else tonight. but I
No, that's fine. I mean,
The approval numbers on the cover sheet of the plan, but I didn't print one out. I don't have it.
I was more curious, it's state, not town, but I was
Right.
curious if they had approved.
Well, without
If
that.
they hadn't have, it would have been like, why are you here?
It'll go in a long way on that entrance, that's the first thing I did.
It's pretty straight through there, so I couldn't see a
Well,
reason why they wouldn't have.
yeah,
A little bit of a curve, but.
Down by the brook is a real low spot, you can't see up over that hill, so that where that entrance is now is kind of like a crust.
Yeah.
So everything kind of goes both ways.
So just help me understand the septic tank, because I don't know that much about septic tanks, but, so the solids are gonna stay in the tank,
Yes,
and then the liquids will flow down to these four different.
for each individual house will have its own
Right.
tank.
Yeah, okay. So then those get pumped out as part of their,
As at the owner's, individual owner's expense.
oh, it's not part of the association?
No, I would say that owners will be responsible for their own septic tanks with you.
Who's responsible for the leach fields, all of them?
The association. You know, thinking about it, might be worth for the association to do the septic, so it ensures that it's the pumping.
Yeah, or have the association documents require the homeowners to pump them on a
Right.
regular schedule. And if not, the repercussion would be a fine, and then the association would pump them.
Which page is the lights on?
The lane? So the lane will be individual to each house. We're not proposing any street lines per se. So there's a detail in the back that shows lighting on the garages and, you know.
Page 31.
Page what, 31?
31. Just have it open to it.
So by code, you have to have a light at each opening, exterior opening on the house by code. So that'll be really the essence of the lighting. You see a wall mount light at the front, for the garages and then the back
Yeah.
of the door.
So we have a 5-foot height siding here.
Okay, sorry about the noise. No, it's all right.
got an email from Chuck Mitchell from the Conservation Commission. You guys pass that around. Basically, we met earlier this week, and in the email, he mentions the last paragraph. After having met, we are confident that the Tilton Planning Board will deal with any remaining questions or issues that might be outstanding relative to overall drainage on the property. So it doesn't feel the need for these folks to meet with the Conservation Commission again. And I'm sorry if I'm interrupting something, but I did want to, on behalf of the Conservation Commission, just bring up, they had submitted a list of items, a list of 10 items. I think you guys all have that handed out at the previous meeting. And there were 2 that they just wanted to sort of finalize on. So if you want, I can read those now, or again, I'm sorry if I was interrupting something else.
No, you're fine.
Okay. So number 5, they talk about lengthy discussion about drainage, swales, elevation, runoff concerns. It's basically, a concern where I think it's the stormwater basin, number 1. It's maybe the bottom of that. The elevation is above the elevation of right next to the road, and there was some concern from the Conservation Commission that if that's being used to collect water, that it could potentially, and if water is infiltrating through the bottom of that pond, it could potentially lead to more water in that area and overtop School Street. So I don't know.
I can speak to that. Is that what you wanted to read? Or
There's that one, and then the other thing would be I know it's been discussed, but they wanted just to address snow storage one more time, make sure that's going to be treated properly.
So the snow storage is planned to be stored in the shoulders on the side of the road like it would typically be, and that allows it to get into the drainage system for the road, which then goes to the treatment areas to be treated, so that the snow that's stored ends up going through the 2 gravel wetlands we have. This is the area on page 9, the stormwater management basin number 1, that they're mentioning the land. This is the high part of the land, so the land slopes down towards School Street. In between this stormwater management area and School Street is a wetland that is ultimately where this will drain to. As far as infiltration, the way the gravel wetland works is what they found at UNH in studying this for the last 15 years is that they're finding that that's the best treatment system of all of the drainage system, the stormwater management systems that they've been able to look at. What it is it's a layer of gravel, like 3/4 inch stone, very coarse stone. Then a layer of pea stone, smaller stone to keep things from getting into it, and then at the top is a wetland soil. So it's a very dense soil that wetland plants can grow in. Then there's vertical risers in that allow the water to go into the gravel system. The gravel system has to be either lined or it has to be in the seasonal high water table so that it stays moist or stays wet most of the time. It can dry out like in the summer in August or something like that. But what they found is by keeping that stone wet, it breaks down nitrates better than any other system that they've been able to manage. So as far as exfiltration or infiltration being a problem, it's designed not to infiltrate. It's not for groundwater recharge. It's primarily for treatment. So I don't anticipate it going anywhere. It's also a very stable system because it's all 3/4 inch stone, and it's pretty solid. It's not gonna move. We were able to move it even further away from the wetlands, so I think we have more than adequate buffer between it and School Street for any potential problem. This is at AOT right now being reviewed, and AOT is charged in their mandate to review flooding or, you know, the quantity of water that goes off the site, both in flow rate and the volume of water, infiltration and treatment. So we're now, in all the new systems we're having to design, we're having to address all three of those issues because that's their mandate to review by the EPA to issue those permits. So that's another set of eyes besides the town engineers, mine, and now theirs, to ensure that there's not going to be a problem with School Street. So I do not anticipate a problem.
I think there was some concern because that little I'm gonna call it a little wetland, that existing wetland on its own at times flooded on School Street.
Yeah.
I'm sure not seriously. So my question is, what feeds that wetland
There's a,
on the other side?
yeah, there's a culvert right here under School Street that feeds that well.
That is it brook, pond, I don't think it's pond, is
I
it
think it's
just
just
another
a-
wet swampland,
Yeah,
wetland?
but then this ultimately works its way down
Yeah,
around and back into Lane Brook.
right, but on the other side of School Street, is that just a wetland?
Yes, is the drainage
So it's not a
well.
brook or a body of water? Okay.
It's only a 12-inch pipe that goes across the
Oh,
road.
is that all it is?
Yeah.
I went up there yesterday, actually.
Did you?
Yes.
Was there enough snow gone to see something?
Yeah, I found the culvert, and the water wasn't flowing, if you will, but there was definitely water on, called the north side of School Street, and the culvert went underneath, came out the other side, and, you know, it was wet, definitely wet up there, because it's springtime. You know, but it's, I didn't have the exact, you know, I was trying to eyeball it, but it's, you know, I think the wetland's a little lower than the road, but, you know, the road here indicates 590 feet, if I'm reading that right. And where that ridge is now is only 592 feet, so it's only a 2-foot rise in the middle of that basin. You know, I don't know how, you know, so you're only having a 2-foot, I don't know, I'm concerned.
You're concerned?
Well, I mean, you only have 2 feet of clay. How deep is that basin gonna be?
2 feet of clay.
Well, if the contour line going through the middle of this basin is at 592,
Yep.
the edge of the road is 590,
Yep.
so you have 2 feet. That wetland is, you know, it might be a little lower,
Well, there's a berm in between, so it goes up.
but the water's gonna soak through. You're putting, in my opinion, it seems like you're putting a lot of water into that, and it's gonna soak through and make that wetland wetter. Am I?
No, it's not that much water, it's this area up here that's draining in there. It's large for the.
But that water isn't normally going there because it's normally flowing southerly.
No, it's normally, that's the direction it goes. Yeah, we're not allowed to redirect it outside of its existing drainage.
So the water here goes uphill.
Nope.
Well, the water that's there now, it's on the downside of the slope.
So the top of the hill is 614, and it drains down from up here, it drains all the way down like that. That's what it's doing now.
Do you have the survey map without the subdivision on
You
it?
know, the existing conditions, look at that, you know, easier to see.
So a pretty good job from the back of the drainage report.
So we've got basically, the drainage line kind of cuts across like this. And then this part drains this way, this drains this way, this drains this way. It's really a knob.
You have the drainage report, and I can't see these numbers. I'm using my cheaters, I still can't see the numbers.
Karen,
You
do you
want,
have a
you
copy
want
of the
this
drainage
full-size
report?
plan?
Yeah. Oh, here, let me just.
Oh, there you go. Is that better?
Yeah, I will.
It's twice as big.
That's okay.
You can see it now.
This is the top here.
So that's 614.
Yeah, see, it kind of even goes in a circle. So that's really kind of the top of the high spot here, but everything goes like in 4 directions, basically. So this water is coming down here. So for that water that's going,
Well, my concern is that against that road there, that the water is maybe a foot below the road.
right, so what our calculations are set up to show that no more velocity of water is going in that direction, nor volume of water. So the cubic feet per second is reduced and the volume of water is reduced going in that direction. And that's the requirements that AO2 requires us to do.
I mean, to speak directly to my conversation with the Conservation Commission, you know, concerns were of exfiltration, and as Mr. Brown said, it's lined, so that would sort of address that concern. And then what Mr. Brown just said about no increased volume. You said volumes and and that was their other concern, that this was going to be some sort of collection point that took water that used to go in multiple directions and now focused it, and it sounds like that is not the case, right?
It's the opposite.
Well, I'd rather send all the water down the Lane Brook, but that is the way it's gone before, and they want it to keep going in the same direction. We're charged not to redirect it to dry up a well, you know, the opposite. So I couldn't move it out of that area if I wanted to.
Mm.
East there.
The wells would be too dry.
Yeah, well, we'll do something, I'm not sure what the ultimate negative effect would be.
Just a roadway width is my other concern, yeah.
You guys have anything else?
The width of the private road, in our subdivision, a private road is required to be 24 feet wide. So even though the fire department says they don't need it 24 feet wide for their emergency vehicles.
And they said they were requesting a waiver of that.
They are.
They are, right, but,
And I guess the two reasons are, one, safety, because of narrower road, people tend to drive slower, regardless of what a speed limit sign says. So it's for the protection of the residents in the community. And two, it's for the conservation impact, because a narrower road allows for more ground recharge and less water runoff into the wetlands and into these other areas. So that was the benefit of, the two benefits of having the narrower road, which in our opinion and the opinion of the fire department outweighs the benefit of having a 24-foot wide road.
it also costs you less to build a 24-foot road
No
than a
doubt.
20-foot road. So there's that. I mean,
There's that too, no doubt. I was just looking at it from a town's perspective, because obviously my cost is probably not a huge, something for you guys to have to consider, that's why.
And being a private road, it has to be privately maintained in the future, and it's less expensive to do repairs on the 20-foot road than the 24.
Which is a benefit to the residents that'll be living there long-term.
So this also requires 3-foot shoulders, gravel shoulders. Do you intend to have 3
they showed 5-foot.
Sidewalk on one side, and then we do have a shoulder on the other.
This requires 3 feet gravel shoulder width. Sidewalk width is 5 feet, so,
We have a sidewalk on one side and a gravel shoulder on the other.
so you don't have gravel shoulders on both, even though our subdivision requires it.
I don't know that it requires that it have it on both and a sidewalk. Is that clear? You really have to-
No, gravel shoulder width, most roads have shoulders on both sides, and then a sidewalk.
It says that, it says.
No,
gravel
that's
shoulder
typical,
and a
that's
sidewalk.
typical of a roadway.
No,
You usually don't have your sidewalk up against pavement.
Yes,
It's
You often-
usually a,
you often do have that. There's cases where you have a parkway
is the
between the
sidewalk
back of
curved?
between the back of,
Cape Cod Road.
yeah.
Shows a Cape Cod Road.
So the cross-section that we have for that, if you look at that, will show you what we're proposing.
What page is that on?
I'm looking.
Road profile?
Oh, that one that you showed, I think it was 31.
Is it 31? No.
Yeah, 31. The Cape Cod berm
Oh, it shows the sidewalk.
and the, yeah.
Yeah, but I think we have a cross-section.
14 and 15 look like road cross sections.
No, that's the cross-sections for the, there's a typical cross-section.
No, okay.
So that would be on page 27, the upper left.
Where's the gravel shoulder?
Well, that's a good question. This is the town typical cross-section, I believe. But it doesn't show the gravel shoulder behind the curbing. Is there, do you have the subdivision regulations? In the back, they have the typical sections. Let's just take a look at that.
The page that you want, Catherine.
I haven't gone that far in the back. Better than mine. Close to the back.
So that detail in our plans is basically the top of this one. And it doesn't show gravel shoulders on either side when you have curving. It does show it
It shows it here.
here without curving. And that's the shoulder.
Were you saying there's only curving on one side?
No, there's only sidewalk on one side.
Okay, so you're having curve on both sides of the road?
Yes.
4 feet, gravel shoulder width 3 feet, sidewalk width 5 feet. I don't see anything about the curb.
So typically behind the Cape Cod berm, you wouldn't have gravel, you would just have like loam and seed or a sidewalk.
Oh. I was just thinking about other roads that might be narrower, because I'm thinking about on Lancaster Hill Road, there's a couple mobile home parks, and they seem to have pretty narrow roads, but I'm not a...
Country Meadows isn't any wider than 20 feet, I believe.
So that,
20.
okay, so I think there are a few others, that's something that's worth looking into, if we seem to have granted that in the past. Or waived it.
Did we have anyone from the public that wanted to comment?
Just a point about Country Meadows too, there's more, there's 32 houses in that development and there will only be 24 in here. And since I've owned it, there's never been an issue with on-street parking being a concern. And those lots are smaller, which would, you know, force more people to potentially park on the streets. And there hasn't been an issue, so. 35 home sites.
You stand corrected.
I do.
And we were hoping tonight that if it was, you know, the board's pleasure, that we could get some type of conditional approval just as we're finishing up this, so there's no redesign issues hanging out there, and something like the road width, things like that, that's kind of a major deal, and affects a lot of other stuff, so we'd kind of like to know redesign if possible, if we were basically on the right track while we're waiting for the approval.
Well, I'm willing to go with the narrower road width, just because we've done it. Clearly, Country Meadows and over there on Lancaster Hill Road, we've done it too. Lancaster Hill Road, the subdivisions up there, they're narrow.
Windy Hill and.
Windy Hill, they have narrow
There's
roads.
a trailer park.
Well, it's the same, similar,
These are houses with lots for sale.
yeah. But it's a matter of driving to residential areas.
I would agree to it only as it pertains to this, not as it's been done in someplace else. I'm kind of a case by case myself.
Well, I know, but we do have to go, I think, if we granted it.
I don't think this is similar at all. That's my only problem.
No, I mean, if we've done it in the past, that's all, then we should probably be somewhat.
But I think, I can go with slower traffic, safer.
Would they have to go before the ZBA to get a variance to go away from that?
No.
No, we can make
We
that.
vote the waiver
Because
tonight.
this is subdivision, not zoning regulation.
So is everybody comfortable on the
I'm
discussion
comfortable with
on
it.
the waiver?
I am.
So do we have a motion?
I'll make one.
Just make that.
No, I didn't, but just Jane is halfway through, so.
Well, I just said I'll make a motion. You go, wanna make a motion?
To grant them 20-foot roadway width. instead of 24.
The waiver. You have that, Dari?
Who made the motion?
Jewel,
Okay, yep,
I'll second.
James seconding.
all right, thank you.
Any more discussion on the waiver? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Okay,
So we should catch it?
Yeah, so we got 1, 2, 3, 5 in favor, yeah. 1 opposed. If I could, there is another waiver that looks like it's going to be required on, if you want to look at page 6 of Mr. Brown's response letter. It's basically the second entry in italic, section, what's that, 776R. Subdivision regulation specifies a minimum center line radius for horizontal roadway curves of 250 feet. Shown on sheet 9, the center line radii of proposed horizontal roadway curves in the vicinity of stations 1 plus 50, 8 plus 50, 10 plus 0, and 13 plus 0. Fails to conform to this requirement. So the response from the applicant was, we are seeking a waiver. So Mr. Brown, am I correct that that's the case?
Right, that was included with the road width issue. This road essentially forms a cul-de-sac, and so we have adequate turning radiuses, which we've shown and worked with the fire department on. And essentially, it's similar to a cul-de-sac versus a through road where you would be, let's say, connecting two connector roads. You know, like if you're connecting School Street with another major road, and you would have that, so you're anticipating higher traffic speeds. This is essentially one big cul-de-sac here, and that's why we asked for the waiver for that.
Do we have something with the fire department that said they have accepted that?
Well,
I got a letter that sort of talks about stuff, but it doesn't say they specifically.
I don't know. I guess I don't have anything in writing that specifically, where Tim, kind of did this additional comments where he specifically addressed the 20-foot width. I don't have anything that,
Well, the original approval, he had asked in his original letters to us to give him a turning movement.
Okay. So in that case, so we have a letter from January 9th where that's brought up, turning radius, yes.
Right.
And then there's a subsequent January 26th email where he, Mr. Tim expresses approval.
Of the turning radius?
Well,
Yes.
Of the turning radius, Jerry?
We have it right.
that's not what I see in the letter that I'm holding before me, but the letter before it brings up the turning.
Right, we made a
But does he approve it?
Yes.
Accept that, the turning radiuses, they're not gonna be as their subdivision?
Yes.
And it's not up to him to approve it, it's up to the planning board, but.
No, that was
So
his.
what do we have in writing that says he approved those turning radiuses reductions?
Well, I mean, what I'm seeing before me is, again, a letter from January 9th that says the following areas will need to be addressed prior to approval. It says turning radius. It must be confirmed that all TNFD vehicles can maneuver throughout the area. Again, that's January 9th. Then there's a January 26th site plan review from Tim Joubert, and says that these plans have been approved.
The January 26th,
Yeah.
it says these plans have been approved by Tilton Northfield Fire and EMS with the following requirements. All plan revisions must be submitted and approved by Tilton Northfield Fire and EMS. That's why I'm confused.
Well, I mean, so I guess So at this point, he's saying if revisions are made, I gotta see them. However, he's no longer bringing up the turning radius. I mean,
Well, isn't that a revision?
But this, it hasn't been revised since then. I
right,
think, is
right. I mean, other things on the plans have been revised, but not that.
So why would he add the sentence underneath? With
Because-
the following requirements, all plan revisions must be submitted and approved by Tilton Northfield Fire and EMS.
He's saying if there are revisions.
Subsequent revisions to that.
Yes, it doesn't say that. Okay. Well, I guess it's regardless of what the fire department has said. We'll have to make that decision.
Why can't we make the waiver contingent upon a formalized letter from the fire department saying that?
No. Obviously. Who will be responsible for maintaining the gravel wetlands?
The association.
And do we have, I didn't see, usually in the drainage report, there's a plan for that. Is that annually, how often, and I don't know what has to be done to a gravel wetland for maintenance. I assume there's a certain plan to keep invasives out of it.
There's an inspection and maintenance manual that it gets approved as part of the AOT permit that was submitted with that application, which the town has a copy of. That is in review, but what the maintenance for a gravel wetland, which is specified in that inspection and maintenance manual, is essentially every 3 years you have to cut all the vegetation down and rake it out of the gravel wetland so it doesn't build up. And then, of course, check the outlets, in case they're being plugged or anything like that. But that's the main maintenance, because you don't want it to have a perpetual thick growth.
Is there any plan for invasive removal or?
No, there's, normally we don't include that in there.
I'm thinking purple loosestrife, which loves wetlands, and I see it all over the place in wetlands.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious why that isn't included in the inspection and maintenance manual.
Should be.
Let me
Because
follow.
I would think instead of cutting it, you'd want it removed,
Right.
because they could choke out a wetland. So can't, Japanese not.
The issue is, the major issue is that the plants themselves develop nitrates, and so as they decay, so what you want to do is take down healthy stands of whatever starts growing in there. They did a lot of research on planting wetland species in the gravel wetlands, and they found that they didn't take very well, but natural wetland species appear in the gravel wetlands over a very short amount of time, usually within a year or two. You start to get natural ones just show up because that's the place they like to live.
Interesting.
So the invasives would be addressed by clearing them out every 3 years then?
Well, some of
I
the
see.
Japanese knotweed and purple loosestrife, the problem is their root base, you can cut them down, but the root base
Right, they'll
continues to
come
grow
back
and
up.
chokes.
Oh.
Or,
And there
So how do you
are
remove?
portions right now in New Hampshire.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Yeah, well, everywhere, right?
well, New Hampshire, 2 years ago they went on them, now
Oh.
it's wild.
That's awful.
It's very hard to kill, very hard.
Like bamboo?
Yeah, it looks kind of like bamboo,
that is what they call New England bamboo.
but I don't think it's a true bamboo, I don't know.
No, it isn't,
No,
but we
it's
call
not,
it New England bamboo.
yeah, it looks like bamboo,
Oh.
but.
Yeah, some people are like, oh, it's
For knotweed?
Cut
It was
down,
all over,
later,
it was all over
right?
the senior center, and now Paul did a good job of taking care of it.
So I have another comment, another
Yes.
question. So, we've allowed them to park on 20-foot roadways.
No.
We've allowed them to put in a 20-foot
Oh,
roadway.
I thought you said park.
So the cars have to, they have signs that can say no parking on the shoulder.
Yep.
It has a California Cape Cod berm, which means they're gonna park on the sidewalk. So now you're trying to create safety issues. Safety, making traffic go slower, but they're gonna park on the sidewalk, so now if little Junior is coming down the sidewalk on his buggy, now he's gotta go out into the road. Because they're gonna park on the sidewalk, you know they are.
Well,
Well, they go.
we could simply change that sign to say no parking on the side of the road. There's no reason.
And that's true, they can always park across the street.
Right.
And then too, if a fire truck had to get in, they could walk on the sidewalk. So it'd make that
Right.
easier too.
We don't wanna make that a condition, no parking on the sidewalk, side of the road.
Okay.
Stay on the second waiver first.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Before we
There you go.
get that one.
sorry, I got
Yeah,
sidetracked.
so
No,
that
that's
one
okay. Just
is-
I'm squirrel boat today, sorry.
so on
That's a radius one.
waiver number 2, is there any more discussion? Oops. Entertain a motion? Jane has made a motion to accept with the condition that there's a letter from Tilton Northfield Fire approving the turning radiuses.
Second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, now on to the next.
Let's talk about the monumentation.
We did talk about monumentation.
Pardon?
We talked about, address the monumentation issue.
Sure.
Yes, please do.
Or did you have a question? I'm sorry. Am I jumping to the answer? Is this Jeopardy?
I couldn't leave it
It
down.
is.
Dory mentioned it to me this afternoon when we were
That was the
talking.
question.
And kind of I have the question in my mind.
Whether they
Could you
are
please
in
ask a question?
the monuments up now, which, or I think, I've been reading this and I'm not sure which one of these it is, but I believe what you're requesting is to put them in as you sell the properties.
Yeah, and the only reason for that, I mean, we can put them all in, it's just we gotta build the road. And so we're gonna have a lot of construction. You know, at what point do you put them in so you don't just wipe them out? That's the only issue. In a lot of cases, in fact, most cases, we make sure that they're all in prior to getting the CO for the house. That's usually the case where the road is graded to the right elevation in the front. I don't know if you've ever driven down a neighborhood and seen bounds sticking up in the front yards. Because when my guys go out to set those, a lot of times we're not sure what the finished grade right there is gonna be. You know, 6 inches, pipe sticking out of the ground 6 inches looks terrible. So we tend to wait till the loam's down. We know what the site work contractors decided for the finished grade. That happens about the time the house is finished. I'd be happy to put them in, whatever you want. We just might have to put them in again. That's the issue.
We're talking about the rebar
Yes.
pieces?
You do see that in our subdivision, it does say at least one lot corner at the right-of-way line shall be marked by a solid stone or concrete monument.
At least one, does it say?
At least one lot corner at the right-of-way line shall be marked by a solid stone or concrete monument 4 inch by 4 inch by 36 inch minimum. All other lot corners shall be marked by either a 1-inch diameter iron pipe or 5/8-inch diameter steel bar at least 30 inches as wide, or a drill post set in existing stone wall. Glad they didn't say tree.
You really said that, at least one, huh?
I thought we brought that up last time.
Yeah, we did.
We brought that up last time.
At the right of way, not at the property line. Yes, so the right of way,
At one lot corner, at the right-of-way line.
At the
least
right-of-way.
one lot corner.
The right-of-way line.
at least one, yeah, that is funny.
I think you actually addressed it on page 4 of your response letter.
Oh,
Yeah, I thought we,
In order to satisfy a requirement, blah, 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 of the subdivision regulations, we recommend sheet 8 be revised to specify the intent to install 4x4x36 solid stone or concrete boundary monuments at all points defining the right-of-way of Highland Ridge Circle.
Yeah, so that's worded really oddly, because I know what I expected it to say, so I'm reading it, I never saw that word lot, but what its intent is to denote the right-of-way with concrete bounds, and the lots can be bounded with rebar or iron pins like we normally do. But it doesn't say that exactly, it says one lot at the right-of-way. You come over and read the story. I didn't, it's, sometimes I read things and I already decide what it's gonna say, and I don't see the whole thing, but then, it doesn't really even make sense, so.
okay, yeah.
At least one lot corner at the right-of-way line, is that what you're saying?
That's what it
It's,
says.
that's what
Yeah.
that
So
says.
I guess what it's saying is if you have multiple lot corners at the right-of-way line, you only have to put a 4x4 stone on one of them?
Yeah,
That's
I
what I
think
think.
what it means is to bound the right-of-way with stones.
Right.
And the lots with pins, which is really,
Yeah,
A
and
good way to
one
do it.
only one lot corner, that's what gets me.
Yeah, yeah.
One lot corner.
yeah, that's funny,
Mhm.
yeah. 'Cause
the
it's
others
kind
are rebar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's towns that require, all the corners be stones, and I'll often ask for a waiver to make the front ones pins, because it's nice for us as surveyors to have a difference of, and it's nice for the owners too. You can say, no, the stones are the right of way, the iron, the rebars are your lot, because a lot of times the owners get confused with the right of way monuments, that might end up like this one's right in the middle of that lot. This one is right off to the side, it's only 22 feet. People would be confused that that's the lot line when it's not. Doesn't matter to me, but I know that the town engineer apparently read it the same way I did, because he asked for granite bounds at the right-of-way corners.
Well,
I don't have to set the granite bounds anymore, I have vendor guys to do that, so I don't really care if they have to do that.
they didn't know it was a process. Yeah.
Weird, some of the things that they're broken in there as well.
So what we don't want to do is not bound the lots. That's what we don't want to do. We want to make sure that all the property corners are in. So it's just a matter of when we do what we do.
Because
Yeah, so you're asking for,
I think they
the
should.
lots are bound in pins, then you know that's your lot, but if everything is concrete, there could be one, 20 feet apart. Which one's the property line, which
Oh,
one's the
right.
right-of-way bound.
Well, the comment in the review was that it's when the bounds get set as well, was not only the two, but to set them at approval. And so it's just, we got tree cutting to do, we have a road to build, we got a lot of work to do. Sometimes we set the rear ones and then wait to set the front ones till later, so those are already.
I think before the houses are set, built, and so the lots should be defined. The pins should be set, and that would be before certificate of occupancy is handed out, because there wouldn't be anything to occupy.
Right. It's usually a
That's
requirement.
what he
by most towns for the CO is that
I
the
think that would
building
be
inspector CO the house.
closest to the intent of this. But it doesn't mean you have to go out and set them before the road is built
Right, that's what,
and your grading is done.
exactly, that was it.
Because before the lots are sold, we should
Contractor.
accept.
Yeah.
We usually
go
do
set them so
construction.
that
That's just my opinion.
So that the customer, we usually go set tall stakes so the customers can see where all the lots are while they're selling them, but it's once they start the construction, then we'll set them.
Right, so during construction, they will be bounded and marked, they'll just be by a wooden stake in case it gets run over or, you know, the grade set. And then once it's set, then the wooden stake comes out and permanent monument would go in, right? I mean, that's kind of.
Right.
That's how they do it, I think. Yeah. That's not part of the
Discussion on the plan?
I have, I guess, some
Yes.
things, just kind of a list of things. One of the I'll just go through, one of the recommendations in the letter, the planning board is allowing lots of less than 15,000 square feet. And cluster development regulation says that the planning board can allow lots of less than 15,000 square feet if there's some, this is me paraphrasing, if there's some kind of trade-off, some environmental or other benefit. And I think a benefit that is being put forth by the applicant is a large amount of open space. And to sort of, put that in writing, I guess I would recommend that the planning board require that there be something addressing open space preservation in the condo docs, and that what's the word? Association documents, and that the planning board should require as a conditional of approval of those documents at a compliance hearing. So that's one recommendation I have. Another is the third-party engineer reviewer brings up a performance guarantee. I think that should be addressed and included as a condition of approval if the board wishes to approve this. And I guess maybe one last thing right off for potential a final approval from the reviewer, the third-party reviewer, should be required.
Are you talking about number 14?
I'm not talking about any numbers. I'm just talking about notes I wrote in front of me. I mean, these are these are just notes. I mean, so that would be my last recommendation, that any approval required, that it gets final sign-off from the third-party reviewer. And then one other thing, I guess maybe doesn't need to be addressed tonight, but when I contacted E911 about the street addresses, it was mentioned that, I don't know what you guys are considering naming the road, but she mentioned that Highland Ridge Drive, there's a Highland Avenue in Tilton, and they like to avoid instances of using the same name. So just something that can, again, I don't know that it has to be dealt with tonight, but I didn't want it to go unmentioned.
So if I could just ask you, the board, for their input. As I said, I talked to the attorney who's putting the association documents together and said, we were having this meeting, and I thought we might have some input from the board as far as preparing those documents. Dory, what would you like to see potentially? Do you have any thoughts on wording that we could add to the association documents about the open space? Or just
I mean, I guess, the ultimate, the furthest would be a conservation easement. That may be unnecessary and overkill if there are other other ways that you can sort of guarantee that you know, this trade-off that the planning board has allowed for stays in place. I don't have.
So some wording in there that would address conservation, maintenance, access.
Yeah, maybe, you know, maintaining land in a perpetual vegetated state, or, you know, how, or and then, you know, this isn't necessarily an environmental consideration, but another public benefit would potentially be if certain areas were clearly designated for use, public recreation use, something like
I'm
that.
not sure if we're gonna want to
Okay,
overly
that's,
encourage that,
That's-
just because we have the,
okay.
but let me talk to the attorney, but I'm sure he's got some wording that we could add to that, and then we'll bring that to the board to take a look at.
Okay.
What was the second thing you brought up? It's quite a list.
Oh, let's see. Maybe the performance guarantee? Is that the second thing?
No, it was approval of the HOA docs at a compliance hearing.
Okay. But after that, I think, did I
It's the
see?
performance.
Okay, yeah.
Our third-party reviewer recommends that our town council review the draft homeowners association document.
And let's, Joy brought up the road name, there's a Highland Avenue in
I guess,
town,
yeah.
and we had put Highland Ridge Road, I think that's a little too close. So we're gonna work on a new name for the road.
No, thanks. And then if I could just,
And we could run that through the 911 people to approve, correct?
yeah, I mean, she didn't say absolutely not to Highland Ridge Drive, so, you know, it's not like we got a denial from her on that.
No, but I think she was concerned it was too close.
Yeah.
It's not, we're not married to that name.
Okay.
You know, Sassoon Way, Dari Street.
Very dry.
The other concern I would have with the name is there, in Northfield, in the fire district, there's the Highland
Okay.
condos and the.
Yeah.
All right, so
Oh,
then,
right.
Yeah, I think we'll name it after
Okay.
one.
all right.
So,
Yeah, it's
Eric
Highlands.
his favorite. And I know it's.
Do you have anything else?
Yeah, thank you. And then I'll shut up. So stormwater maintenance, you said that the alteration of terrain has a stormwater or maintenance section in it, right? Does that, and you talked about potentially adding or addressing invasives. So I'm just kind of talking recap. Does that include like roadside or road drainage maintenance? I guess so, right? It's all the same thing in your case, okay. All right.
And they've gotten considerably more aggressive. They're sending out letters now, I think every 3 years, asking for maintenance logs. So they're taking steps now to start following up because nobody has been maintaining these systems correctly. And they're becoming much more intricate in their design, and so they need to have maintenance to continue functioning properly. So AOT started this program with that. They'll probably be looking for more money from us for inspections and things like that.
Is that it for you, Dari?
What? Oh, I see, okay. I see what you're talking about with 14, Catherine. Homelessness, okay. Yeah. No, thank you, that's everything.
Any more questions from the board? Does anybody have anything to
weeks.
Okay, let's
Well,
make a
you've
list
got
of
it.
the things
Yeah,
that we're.
you've kind of got it
You've
all
got
there.
it, so why don't you make the
Because we've
motion?
got the require open space
Is this a
preservation
motion?
and
Wait.
homeowners docs. Just going through the various things and make sure we didn't forget anything. Approval of the docs at a compliance hearing. Performance guarantee, final review by third-party reviewer. Town attorney review the homeowners association documentation.
Do we need to do that, do you think? Seems a little much. Can, I guess.
Do we
I
need
think it
that?
covers
Do-
everything.
The town council review, I don't think you guys should let go of it. I mean,
Yeah.
Association documents?
yeah.
Yeah, they should-
Oh, are
they need
those,
to be reviewed.
oh, okay,
I
I was
think,
thinking
you know,
of like just the rules,
I-
but
I
it's
don't feel
more
confident.
like,
I mean, just,
yeah.
yeah, you
We
know,
always have condo docs and whatnot
Oh, okay.
what's that?
go out.
Yeah,
All right, yeah, I was thinking of the rules that they have, like the prohibitions or whatever, but never mind.
yeah.
Continue
Do
on,
we
sorry.
state when that compliance hearing is held?
No, I guess, if, we could set a date, but it,
I think we want to wait till we
I-
add everything.
I think it makes, if we set a date, then we can say, oh, it was, yeah, I wouldn't set a date. I think we should, you know, when they're ready to roll, we'll send out, you know, abutter notices and just, you know, have the compliance hearing.
Okay, sorry.
And, oh, sorry, I recommend that the compliance hearing address all the conditions of approval.
What did you have happen?
Instead of just the documents.
Mhm.
Do you rather that one?
I mean, certainly some of them are administrative in nature, but I think there's no harm in addressing them all. Even if it's me just standing up, telling you guys, yes, this was done, this was done, this was done. No reason not to, since we're having a hearing anyway.
And Catherine suggested submission of maintenance plan of drainage, including wetlands.
Gravel
Drainage.
wetlands.
Okay.
Didn't you say you have to submit that anyway to the state?
Yeah,
You
so,
submitted it as part of the document, but I
Right,
think
but-
that
but
plan
once
should be
it's-
submitted to us.
yeah, once it's approved, I'll submit that as a separate submission to the planning board.
And, all right,
In that, in my opinion only, it should,
Have it-
whoever's responsible for doing that maintenance and filling in those reports should be copied to the land use office of the town of Tilton.
yes.
Did you have something further?
well, I guess, you know, if we're gonna have the compliance hearing, we might wanna just address number one on the third-party comments, which is to just make sure all state and federal, all required permits have been
Obtained.
obtained, yeah, thank you. I
And
mean,
we want-
is that, I don't
I'd be
imagine
happy
that
to have this one.
Yeah, I mean, we
creates.
need them anyway.
Right, exactly.
And do we want the letter from,
The fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Do you have all that, Doug?
no. I mean, I have it in bits and pieces, I do
Okay.
wanna get it.
Let's,
I have notes that I can use to feed as you go, but I don't.
let's help you. Okay, first was require open space preservation in the homeowners in the association documents.
Thanks.
Approval of the homeowners documents at a compliance hearing.
Okay.
Performance guarantee.
Okay, and I would add some wording to that, that we can pull right from the letter. In an amount and form acceptable to the town of Tilton to serve as a financial surety for full and final completion of A, all street drainage and utility infrastructure improvements, and B, proper installation and maintenance of erosion and sedimentation control measures throughout the construction period.
Throughout the construction period of the road? Because-
the entire project, I believe.
Because I don't know how long it's gonna take to build all the houses, so I was hoping, you know, obviously the roads and everything would go in first, and then, you know, the house lots are the house lots. Usually, if someone does a building permit for a single-family house lot, there wouldn't be a surety on that, would there? Wouldn't it just be the infrastructure?
Yeah, I mean, I can't say I know exactly how it's handled in, you know, in like situations all the time, but I do see what you're saying. So I guess I'll turn it over to the board. I mean, what he's suggesting is that maybe that the period for this, you know, sort of performance guarantee go until maybe the infrastructure for the road infrastructure is in place.
Right.
Yeah, I understood it to be, you know, for all the drainage work and the
Right, the
infrastructure,
road, the
all
wetland,
infrastructure,
which would be
and
the
all the
wetland, all
buildings
that
themselves.
And then normally, as parts of that are completed and stabilized, you can ask for a partial release.
So, if in fact there are those partial releases, that sort of incremental partial releases, then would it not be that much of a burden on you guys to go through the full length of the project? Because by the time you're down to where the roads stabilize, all the drainage systems are stabilized, we're talking, you know, 85+% of the concern is out of the way. So there's a smaller amount. Again,
Well, my concern is, as we know, real estate markets go up and down, so, you know, right now the market's pretty good, but let's say we put in 5, 6, 10 houses, but then we have another recession, and no one buys houses for 3 years. Well, you know, if we're not building on the lots, but yet all the infrastructure is done, I hate to keep the surety open and paying those bonds for that period of time when, you know, it's more intended for the infrastructure.
But normally there wouldn't be any surety on the lot.
Well, that's what we're trying to say, because originally we're saying for the whole build-out of all the lots.
So-
Well, I think it's really gonna be the roadways.
Yeah, we said the infrastructure, we just said the infrastructure.
Oh, okay, oh, all right, sorry, I
Okay.
guess I
Okay.
misunderstood.
Okay.
I was thinking it was for all the houses and everything.
Oh,
No,
no.
which one would you?
Sorry, which number was that?
It's page 2, number 3 on Mr. Brown's response letter. I mean, the first thing on page number 2.
Are you ready for number 4, Doug?
Wait, I have a-
Yes, thank you.
Excuse me?
I
Yes,
just have a question.
yes.
On number 3, infrastructure, utility infrastructure, is that going to include all the different septic tank sewer lines? So if it does take time for those houses to be built, do we need to make sure that that is covering that, or are all those lines and tanks going to be installed on the lots before the houses?
I would say they would.
Well, what if we just do the leach fields then, and have that phased? Because the way that I intended on doing it, you really can't put in the tanks and stuff until the house is in, because until you know the final elevation of the foundation, you really can't set the tanks. But the leach fields could be in, and those, you know, going through the development process, those would kind of be phased in. So, you know, there's 4 separate systems, so what is it? 6 houses per system. So, you know, we would do 6 houses, or build the leach field, build 6 houses, and then once we started building the next 6 houses, before we did that, we would build the leach field. The tanks would be added as each house is built.
But what happens if, are you going to sell these lots in order, or what happens if I come in, I want lot number 8, and that's on a different leach field.
Well, we would have to put in that leach field if
If we
I
don't
haven't-
sell that lot.
right, I haven't fully figured out if I allow selected lots like that, or if I say you can choose any of these 6 lots, because this is the first phase, so to speak, that's opening up. Or, I mean, if I did allow that, then obviously, you know, I would certainly have to put in the full leach field, you know, as complete before I set even 1 tank. So I can see, you know, the surety on the leach fields themselves, but the individual tanks would be the individual home sites. Right, is that?
And my guess, or my fairly well-informed opinion is that Steve won't include the septic tanks in the surety bond that he comes up. Steve Keach will come up with a bond estimate, and he won't include that, because it, as you said, it would normally have to do with the construction of the house.
Okay.
So, and when we get that, we'll know what it says, but I am pretty confident he won't.
Oh, so there's someone that does that, okay,
Yeah.
we have to figure that out.
Yeah, I'll work with him on that.
Ready for number 4?
Yes, thank you.
Sorry.
No, that's quite all right. This is the time to get all the questions answered. Final review by third-party reviewer.
Okay,
5,
all right.
town attorney to review homeowners association docs.
All right.
6, submit maintenance plan of drainage including gravel wetlands.
All right.
Obtain all required permits, local, state, federal.
I have one. No.
Oh, okay, yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to bring up, every time the maintenance, you have to submit to the state, the maintenance plan, it should be submitted here.
Yes.
So I want to specify that each time, okay.
Perfect, thank you. And the letter from Tilton Northfield Fire and EMS stating that the road serves their requirements.
Okay,
Turning radius, I think.
is that, and then is that all of them?
Yes,
Wait, what about parking?
oh, thank you. What do you want to work at, Eric?
No parking on the sidewalk side of the road throughout the development.
And that will be in the association documents, right?
And on the sign that we put on, in the development.
Thank you for remembering that.
And then just, I had suggested that all of these be addressed at a compliance hearing. I think you mentioned it on condition number 2, but I don't know if we just want to put it as a final condition, all subsequent conditions shall be verified at a compliance hearing.
Should that compliance hearing be held before construction starts?
Yes.
Should we specify that?
Well, they won't have final approval until the compliance hearing takes place.
Okay.
So the compliance hearing is more just verification that these items are completed, right?
Yeah,
Not so much
it's-
going through.
Yeah, a planning board, if there's any conditions that are above and beyond something that can be addressed administratively, there should be a compliance hearing where the board actually gets to say, yep, we agree that's addressed to our satisfaction. So, in this example, I think the fact that there's a homeowner's document that has, that sort of requires deliberation, and for that required, I think, compliance hearing. But it's still the same process. You're working on conditional approval right now, and that'll sort of be a more public finalization of it, but it's still the same deal, basically.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Eric. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, and look forward to seeing you at the compliance hearing.
Now get to work.
That's what we're doing.
Do we have any correspondence this evening?
Well, yes, there's a couple things that we definitely need to address.
Cinnamon.
We have 2 lot mergers. We've confirmed that they are in same, common ownership. They don't represent, zoning nonconformity. And in both cases, there are no mortgages, so we don't have to do any additional notices. But these are for your signature here. The 2 mergers. Can I keep going? Sure. All right. Jonathan Scanlon is one of our representatives to the Lakes Region Planning Commission, and his term is expiring. And it says here, per Chapter 3646 of New Hampshire RSA, representatives are nominated by the member municipality's planning board and appointed by its municipal officers, are residents of the community, and may be elected or appointed officials of the member municipality. I have to admit, I don't know for certain that Jonathan Scanlon, Selectman Scanlon, doesn't want to continue with this. However, this was in my box, so I'll circulate
So
that.
my question is, how many meetings has he attended?
I don't know. I do not. Sorry.
Well, aren't you also on it or something?
I am. Yep. I'm the other one.
What do you
So,
see?
how many
Yeah, do you
meetings
see him?
I've gone to a few, but certainly not as many as I'd like to. Lakes Region Planning Commission is literally next door to my house. Like, seriously next door.
So that means,
That I should go to, I don't know.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that. I think it's neat.
Nobody else has stepped up and said they want to do this, right?
Yeah, I mean, and I'm happy to do it. I wish I could make it to more meetings, but hopefully in the future.
How often do they meet? 6 times a year.
6 times a year, yeah.
He wants
And that's, I work for Lakes Region.
Well, here's the thing, I'm not trying to appoint him, but if he's never attended a meeting,
but we
We
don't
know that.
We don't know.
that's right, so would it behoove us to find
Find out
someone who
first.
did, if he doesn't, so.
to make sure he still wants to do it.
Let's find out if he still wants to do it, and how many meetings he attended.
Yeah, 'cause he may want a break, we don't know.
Well, yeah.
Well, it's addressed to the chairman of the select board anyway, so.
Oh, that's fine.
Can you find out for us?
What, how many meetings?
It's
If
him.
he still wants to do it, and if
Yes,
he's
okay.
been doing it.
Yeah, I will.
And how many meetings has he gone to?
All right. All right. This is just a little piece, an email I sent to Nick and Beth Joslin, who are the owners of Lone Star Barbecue. We're happy, it looks like they're going to be moving into an actual building. So I just sent an email to them, making sure they're aware of what their
In Tilton?
requirements may be. Yeah, J. Chris Diesel Restaurant.
Oh, up at the marina.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty cool spot.
That's a
I'm kind of
perfect
excited
spot.
about that.
Yeah.
Oh, it does say, it says coming soon, huh?
Yes.
Yeah, I saw that.
Oh, it
today.
does?
It's coming soon.
Yeah, that's why I said two.
It doesn't say anything, it just says
Yeah, I
coming
couldn't
soon.
tell if
Oh,
it was an old coming soon.
I don't know.
Coming soon, I'm like,
Well, somebody just asked me what was going in
They
there,
don't
and I
have to
said,
do
I
anything for
have
site
no
plan,
idea.
just
That'd be a great spot for
Well, you can read that email. Basically, what I said is kind of like the same wording that's on our change of use review form. If you guys are not changing this, and that, good chance you won't need site plan review. But if you are, we need to talk, and then I made it clear they'll need a certificate of occupancy and permits from other people. Trying to do a little bit more of this, just so we have something in writing, even though we tell people this, they don't necessarily remember, and we don't remember when we told them. It's nice to have someone say, see, this is the date we told you.
Good job.
Gotta keep doing it. So, zoning ordinance, I'm sorry I was planning on having new copies for you tonight, but the charter permitted use, I'm gonna have to basically start from scratch. We don't have a good digital version of that. And I've been sort of white outing over it basically, and it's time to start from scratch. So I will get new zoning, but all the 6 zoning amendments passed, so great work on that. I think they were good amendments and a lot of hard work in that. First impressions, something that we should talk about a little bit, but I'll save that for last. April, I have, my son is starting to get college acceptances, and so therefore we need to start doing college visits. April 24th, I need to be out of state with him. So that's the date of a meeting, so that's also school vacation week, I believe.
It is.
And I think last year, kind of similarly, we canceled that meeting, if I remember correctly. I don't know if you guys want to consider that again this year. Planning board only has to meet once a month.
See, I live for these meetings, you kidding?
All right, that's that.
So that's
You
an
can sit by
affirmative.
yourself.
Yeah, that's an affirmative. Does anyone feel they should not?
So we should cancel.
We should not. Sorry, Jane was distracting me with candy. Sorry.
Okay, Eric.
Do you have a problem canceling?
Whatever it is, it's fine.
April 24th meeting.
No, the only other thing is,
Let's go on.
I won't, at this point, I don't feel I'll be able to attend the April 10th meeting, so.
So you have to come on April 24th.
Well, the only,
We'll leave
because,
a
With
link
Catherine.
for you.
well, no, my first,
Hotel stay.
my first fire district meeting is on the 10th. And at that meeting, we're gonna discuss moving our meetings, because they are held on the second Tuesday of the month, so.
That's water district meeting night too.
All right.
Busy night.
So I think we
Okay,
should
so
cancel the 24th.
April 24th will cancel.
Cancel, okay.
Everyone's in agreement.
I put an email back there that I sent to, I think you, Catherine, Al, and Sheena maybe, about this idea that I've been talking about for years, a site plan review special committee. If you guys could just take a look at that, I included an excerpt from Rochester's site plan review applications. I know the planner in Rochester, he used to work in Laconia, and I'm going to have a follow-up conversation with him about how this all works. But the idea is, you guys go from big projects like Panera, Arby's and Panera, all the way down to these tiny little conversions on Main Street. And I think that breadth creates complication where you want to be consistent, but it's difficult to be consistent when you're dealing with that breadth of applications. And a lot of those little ones, I find we wind up just basically saying, is this going to meet fire? Is this going to meet code enforcement? We kind of wind up going through the list of technical requirements, which is largely something that could be accomplished by getting those technical people together at a meeting. And so other communities, they draw a line, we have minor and major, but they use the line between minor and major site plan review to say the minors will go to the site plan review special committee. And that would, in my mind, that would be the technical experts like Tim Joubert and others, Al, health officer, Johanna, water department. I'm happy to have really as many people who want to be on it. And they would sit down with the applicant and go through and make sure that the project is going to work for the town. And they would have actual approval authority, and that's allowed through state statute. Something that Rochester, I think I read in theirs, is this: if any one member of that committee feels that it should be kicked up to planning board, then it is kicked up to planning board. It's not a majority. If any one member feels that way. So we could look at something like that. We don't have to talk about it more tonight. I'm happy to, or call me about it if you have questions. But I do think it's something that would allow you guys to be more consistent. You'd only be getting the real deal, big time site plan review applications, and you could consistently demand everything. So with that.
Could you send, you've got the Rochester site plan review PDF at the bottom, could you send that to everybody so everyone can review it?
It's on the back here.
Oh,
Is that the PDF?
my apologies.
Oh, yes,
Yes, it is. I'm sorry.
I attached it to the, yeah.
Did
Oh,
you
okay.
say their application was due as well?
No,
Okay.
no, yeah. And then Juliet, do you want to talk about first impressions tonight? Share any news? I'm happy
sure.
to also.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, Catherine was there too, so she's all caught
Well,
up.
I'm not sure. Does everyone know what first impressions is?
Nope.
Okay. We'll start from the beginning.
Right. It's a scheme.
A what?
No, it's a, it's a Ponzi scheme. No, it's a program put on by UNH Cooperative Extension, and it's basically, I've been wanting to kind of help out the downtown area somehow. We've got like 7 out of 18 storefronts vacant over here. So, not that this is going to directly help it, but it's a program where you come in, you have a committee, and they review. We have a sister town, and I guess they've already chosen one for us. It's Pittsfield.
No.
So, I know, yeah,
not
it's
a sister
odd.
town.
Too late.
It's a sister
Too
town
late.
of Franklin.
We don't have control, you know, they design, this is a national sort of program that's already, it's already structured. And so they pick this town for us based on like size and some other things. So basically we have 2 committees in each town, and we go to the towns and we.
One committee each town.
One committee, 2 committees, one in each town. We review each other's towns. We, you know, they're going to give us iPads and blah blah blah. And you fill out surveys, and it's basically what are your impressions of the town? You know, I guess, you know, how would you improve things, or there's a whole bunch of questions based on, you know, how to sort of improve an area of your town. We picked the downtown area. So, you know, we're going to be meeting, and it's going to end, and there's going to be a presentation at the end, I think.
Yeah, UNH does a lot of work. right?
Yeah, it's very well planned, I think. They
So-
do a good job.
Yeah.
Had you, I mean, I missed out, I'm sure, on some things.
What's that?
I probably am skipping over some.
No, just, you know, no, I think you said it well. It's really 2 towns get together. We go visit them, they come visit us, but UNH will organize, we'll do some meetings in advance. I contacted Jen Marsh, who's a community development specialist for the town of Rochester. They did the same thing in Rochester. She sent me a PDF of the report that UNH generated for them. It's beautiful. It's like 40 pages, all these great pictures and ideas, and you know, they sort of, I think they prepare the group to go to that town, and they give you a list of things to look for. So you don't just walk into this town and start taking random notes. You're looking at public transportation and, you know, public seating and pedestrian access and things like that. What else? Costs. So this has been more. The selectmen saw this on Thursday. Juliet and I went to the meeting. Juliet, you know, answered their questions, and they were enthusiastic. All 5 of them signed it, so it's a go. We're looking for committee members now. We're looking for folks to participate in this, and I think they recommend anywhere from, let's say, 10 to 15 people or more, if we can get that many. And, you know, it's good to draw people. You know, we'd like to get some folks who work on Main Street, maybe some folks from the educational community. There's a whole list of ideas they have of the kind of people we want to bring in. But certainly, obviously, it would be great if we could get a nice planning board representation on the group. I don't know,
Yeah.
what else?
The only other thing I think is, you know, at the end, there's sort of a presentation, and they kind of bring you, I think, to some action points. Like, okay, now we've established these things that everybody kind of agrees on about the downtown or whatever. What would everybody like to do as far as action points? Like, let's actually now do something about maybe improvements or not. So that's, and then I don't know, she didn't really, did she say how often you meet?
Well, one thing that Ms. Marsh said from Rochester is that they had like 3 meetings prior to the event, prior to the day that they went to, I think for them it was Littleton.
Oh.
And she said that was too many. And that she provided that feedback to UNH, so I think they're doing just maybe 1 or 2 meetings prior to
Okay.
the going out to the other town. But,
Yeah, they're very thorough. So anyway, you guys game, or?
Sure. I mean, we have to do something to help our downtown. I think this sounds like a
Alright.
good.
The only other thing
If
is,
you go to
you
your
know,
computer and you look up first impression, well, look up UNH first impressions, otherwise you get some really great stuff. You can see samples.
Get
you
that on
guys
the
already
flip
do
phone?
that today.
Yeah. You can see samples
I'm
of the reports that have already been done, Gorham, I can't think of the others. And it's kind of amazing the amount of information that they gather.
Yeah, it is
And
really neat.
it's
really
really
neat.
useful
Looking forward to
information. Take a look.
Yeah,
And there are some pretty blatant parts of Pittsfield.
hey, yeah.
never even been there.
I wonder what they're saying. You got Tilton.
Waterfall, and
They have a
there's
candy
a
store.
nunnery there. There's a nunnery.
Yeah.
There's a
They have the
nothing.
balloon festival.
The deal,
Oh.
I didn't see any. There was
Yeah.
nobody
Maybe we
there.
should go
I
during the
went used to go
balloon
on retreats
festival.
there.
Oh, that's awesome.
how about parking?
They have
It's
helicopter
way
rides
up
during
there,
it.
Yeah, it's
They
pretty
park right on the sidewalk.
Interesting.
and it's
Either
the,
side.
All right, so
Been there, done that.
as far as meeting times.
I do have a question, not related to this, so I'll wait till the,
Okay.
No, just one
Are these
other
gonna be
thing,
day
probably.
meetings, night meetings?
Well, I
Day
mean,
meetings,
I would,
overnight?
right.
Well,
I know where you'd like, yeah, meet evenings down at the brewery.
Again.
I'll sign up.
You gotta get different
I mean,
clubs.
No problem.
okay,
Yeah,
I mean,
the
I'm
brewery, they
open.
have
I think it's more like maybe Dari is, you know, with his work schedule or something, but obviously I could meet after work hours, but
Yeah,
I think we'll,
I'm happy.
I'll just start by getting a list of people and their contacts and then.
Yeah,
so I'll gather those and just, you know, just let me know. Do you want me to email you guys all or about it, or,
Yeah.
That'd be great.
and then you can tell me if you could do.
Has anybody spoken to either Vince Paratori or Bill Lawrence where all the drawings we did on Main Street years ago was? We have all drawings of facade ideas, different color paints, and yeah, we had grants for paint to, do
Oh, that was the
Do
Main
things.
Street program?
Yeah.
Fabled.
you want me to get hold of him and see if he's still got anything?
That's the.
yeah, he keeps coming up with
He
someone
keeps
we
coming
think
up.
would
He
be
has
cool
to
to have
do
on
this,
the
yeah.
group, Bill
Right.
Lawrence, yeah.
Billy?
Billy.
Yeah.
I'll get to him this week.
Perfect, yeah, and see if he
Yeah.
still knows where those are. I know Vince had a file cabinet full of all the old Main
I'm in
Street
touch
stuff.
with Sarah, so I can
Oh,
find out.
that'd be
too.
awesome, thank you.
So, anyway, we're probably thinking Friday afternoon is where, you know, a likely candidate, but,
I didn't know that.
oh, I thought we had kind of,
That's fine.
didn't we talk about that last
I
time?
forget. I'm getting.
Anyway, so, I'll let you guys know.
Perfect.
Strict policy, don't mess with my Friday.
Oh. I mean,
Yeah,
okay, it doesn't have to be Friday.
No, I didn't say okay, be on it either.
I mean,
No,
Alrighty then.
Alrighty then,
Fridays?
yeah.
for most
I don't know,
people,
whatever,
it's
if,
everything.
whatever, we can talk about that later.
Eric, you have another?
At town meeting, there was that tax incentive.
Oh, yeah.
Did that pass? I'm confused.
did.
Did that pass?
It did, yes, 79E, I think it is. So and it is, I think it's, for our downtown district, if somebody makes an improvement to a building and there's an associated public benefit, and it can't just be that you're taking an ugly building and making it pretty. Yes, that's a public benefit, but that's not enough of a public. There has to be something above and beyond that. So if you're taking a downtown building, improving it, and it's a public benefit, then you can get up to 5 years of tax relief on that improvement.
Ah, maybe.
Yeah, and you apply to the Board of Selectmen. but we do have some work to do. I think,
We have to define the district.
well, yeah,
We kind of loosely did a town meeting.
yeah, we do. We do have to define this, we really have to define what we consider a public benefit. And it is on a case-by-case basis that a property owner applies to this Board of Selectmen. Thanks for bringing that up.
I was just saying, we have to define the downtown, because people were talking about some other buildings that are zoned in the village residential, and that, based on what the information is provided at town meeting, that wouldn't fly.
The language of the statute, if you take the language of the statute and mesh it with Tilton, to me, it kind of said it makes sense to just say the downtown district. Because it actually mentions districts in the statute, and it sort of says like village, it doesn't say village district, it's something about a village, anyway.
It said downtown district, that's what it said.
Right, and then it says village something, but when it was talking about the village, it wasn't like village districts, like villagey type area.
Oh, no.
Something like that.
But I stood up and asked for clarification.
You
and said,
did.
So this means just the downtown district, and the board sat right there and said, yes.
Okay, then I think that might mean
I
that,
stood up and said,
That's right, it's you, as arguing.
well, no, it wasn't an argument, I just said that, perhaps it's not defined in our zoning.
yeah,
We're hoping that we could sit down and look at it, because it would be a shame to just have the downtown area, because there's other buildings just outside what we define as Joyce said, the selectmen define as downtown, as railroad track to railroad tracks. But beyond those railroad tracks are older buildings
Yeah, let's have
that could be a public benefit, et cetera, and fixed up.
Something
Yeah,
different to look at and
So
discuss.
that's why I say, I mean, it's something that needs to be studied, maybe come up with something that is for the benefit of, and not to the detriment of the taxpayers.
yeah, if folks could, if you have thoughts or you want to talk about that site plan review special committee, please let me know. I will want, I'll be looking, maybe I'll contact folks, individually, but I'll be looking to find out if this is something you guys want to do.
Homework.
But there was another two nasty words that were mentioned at town meeting, people sitting around me, that needs to be updated.
Yes,
Okay.
the master plan
Master
has
plan.
got to be done.
Alright.
But I think we're best to do that in subcommittees,
Yeah.
to try to get all of us together so many nights. It's like
Oh,
whoever's
no.
interested in the master plan, let's pick that time and just plow in. I know the Conservation Commission is very interested in participating in that again, so. No, that's
Maybe
got-
they were sitting here.
Those people may have been sitting there,
Maybe.
they may be related to someone sitting at this table, but I don't know.
I have a comment.
Yes.
So tonight, when we were site planning, subdivisioning, whatever we were doing with Mr. Cass, obviously in our subdivision regulations, page 26, section 6.3.9, B, the monument, we should clarify that.
The one about the lot corner
Yes.
thing?
Yes. the
Yeah,
right of way.
I didn't get what he was saying at first, and then it sunk in. He was saying that he was distinguishing between the right of way and the lot line, and that he was saying he likes to have the stone at the right of way and the metal at the lot line because they don't always line up. In fact,
They don't, if you look at the plans.
But we
they
need to
don't.
clarify our
Okay.
language so that we don't
Yeah,
get
what
into
is
that
our
again.
intent?
Ours,
What is
ours
that?
is really hokey the way it's written.
Yeah, what is it that the planning board wants?
okay.
Obviously, it's a problem.
Can you put that on for next year?
And I think,
Okay.
as
All right,
companies,
yeah.
I think we should tackle
Direct
that.
them right then and there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, if you look at those on the plan, and then you overlay it with the plan, I mean, it's gonna be in the middle of people's yards because of that
Correct.
curve,
Right.
and I'd be, wait a minute, it's probably only go to the middle of my house.
Right.
Well, it's 36 inches. So it's 4 by 4 by 36, so good luck. Do it first, and first move in. See it.
Straightened out.
Forget your horse. Does anyone have anything else? I'd love to entertain a motion to
Motion to
adjourn.
adjourn?
All those in favor?
Oh.
That was fast 2 hours.
I'm starving. I don't have time to eat your food.
How many times have they been here?